I knew what Dale Hansen is. Unfortunately, right? Unfortunately.
I remember Dale Hansen countdown when I first came.
So Jerry Jones and I and a couple other guys.
This has been a great year, Ted. Dale.
We love Dale. We love Dale.
Dale. He keeps you in touch with sports.
You're ready, jump right in. Dallas Dialogue with Dale.
Hola, shalom, and hey there, neighbor. Welcome to the latest episode of Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. I'm your host, Mark Villasana, and joining me as always is my BFF, marketing manager for Northwest Insurance, Ms. Lila Levy. Shalom, Lila.
Hola.
How are you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Also joining me is WFAA TV legend, World Poker Tour's next superstar, and the man we call coach around here, Mr. Dale Hansen. Hey there, Dale. How are you doing?
Well, I was doing pretty good up until the last couple of days. Since the last time we talked and the last time we did our podcast, I had a tremendous holiday. Everything about Christmas and New Year's Eve was fantastic, but January is off to just an absolutely horrendous start. And
I figured there'd be some stuff you'd want to talk about. Tell me, what's on your mind?
I don't want to go too deep because otherwise I'll lose all my enthusiasm for what we're going to talk about today.
Right.
And that, of course, is blowing up the Dallas Cowboys. But we're 8 days into the new year as we sit here to record this. And, we have the invasion of Venezuela. We had the shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The White House and all their acolytes continue to just lie about what happened. And the moral failings of this administration and about 40-some+% of America, it makes it hard for me to keep going sometimes. It really, really does make it hard for me to keep going, but I'm too dumb to give up now.
Well, I think you've seen it all, but I bet you didn't even expect the stuff that's been going on. It was almost like we didn't have a Christmas time this year. Christmas almost was completely whitewashed. Lila, what about the stuff that's been happening lately? What do you think have to say about it?
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But
awful.
it's really awful. But actually I posted this on my Facebook wall today, and it really, it is like a stone you throw in the water. It just reverberates, and everything is a boomerang. And I just keep feeling that everything is a boomerang. And that saying almost keeps me a little bit grounded. A little bit, because what goes around comes around, but I'm horrified.
Yeah,
I'm horrified. And I'm heartbroken.
It is one of my favorite quotes. Mark Twain said many years ago that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Yeah.
And I really do believe this, and this is as deep as I'm going to go today. There might be a podcast coming, and I'm going to have to let all this bile out. But what I think we're looking at today rhymes a great deal with what we've seen in our history.
I think so.
But on a lighter note,
tell me what you got for us this month.
The lovely Mrs. Hansen told me this morning that this was an incredibly stupid question, but I want to ask it of you anyway.
Okay.
I'm looking during the holiday season. Everybody's got their sales. Buy now, buy later, wait a month. Everything. In the insurance business, now you're doing auto and home. In the insurance business, does it matter when I buy my insurance?
Well, I wish we had a special of the month or an end of the year kind of deal, but unfortunately in the insurance business, it doesn't. They take the facts. In other words, how age your home is, or if you're a driver, what kind of driving record you had. It's purely based on the facts. So there's not really any benefit if you buy in January, June, or December. It's all pretty much the same thing. If you're a crappy driver, you're going to be affected in January, the same way you're going to be affected in
But
in
maybe
December.
a time to structure the payments and how that might impact your...
You mentioned me, you had a situation where a lot of your payments seem to land at the same time of year. There are options on that. You can call your company. They'll let you split your payments. Sometimes you can make 2, sometimes even 4. There's also finance companies out there that will actually finance the whole premium. So you can you can actually put a down payment for a policy and make monthly payments like anything else.
I don't think I want to go that way.
No, I think it's a little bit too much for you.
All right, let's,
tell me what you have for us today.
Yeah, well, we are going to talk about the Cowboys, this remarkable franchise. And as I'm going to say here in a moment, I thought I would just kind of bang out my typical 2 to 3 minute commentary.
Yeah.
And then it turned into a John Grisham novel before I got done. But anyway, sit back and it goes something like this. This has proven to be a little bit harder to write than I thought it would be. Not that I don't have something to say about another lousy Cowboy season, but that I've been saying it for 30 years now. This isn't about Super Bowls anymore. 30 years have come and gone with the Cowboys not even playing in a conference championship game. The only team in the NFC that hasn't, and one of only 4 of the 32 NFL teams that haven't made it to at least the NFL's Final Four since 1996. Houston, Cleveland, Miami, and your Dallas Cowboys. A Cowboys team valued at around $13 billion, the highest valued team in the NFL for the 19th consecutive year, has a streak of 30 years on the field of play, matched only by Houston, Cleveland, and Miami. If you want to make money, Jerry Jones is your guy. You want to win football games? You need another guy. It's a lousy football organization, and I blame him for that. Jerry Jones has had 9 coaches since he bought the team in '89. Only 2 of the 9 wanted by anybody else, and he ran those 2 off because, as he has said, when Jimmy Johnson and Bill Parcells were coaching, it wasn't fun for him. Jones has also said he would write any check and do almost anything to win another Super Bowl, anything except hire a new general manager, of course. I said this to Jones in a live TV interview years ago. Can you name any team in any sport that would hire you to be their general manager? He said he could. I said, I'll wait. And he never did because he can't. The man who insists on being the general manager of one of the most iconic teams in all of sports could never get another GM job anywhere on the planet. And that simple fact should drive every Cowboys fan absolutely nuts. He pays too much for free agents who can't play. Wanted to draft Johnny Manziel to play quarterback, and that would have worked out so well. And when he found Dak Prescott to replace Tony Romo, he made him the highest paid player in the game. Dak Prescott, a quarterback I like and have always defended when others didn't, but the league's highest paid player? As the great Jimmy Johnson would say, please. This is how the Cowboys general manager has made a mess of this once great franchise. The only way you can play defense in this game anymore is with a pass rush. And Jones traded away one of the very best to ever do it. After that Micah Parsons trade, Jones and his allies were saying Parsons had to go because he couldn't stop the run. He disappears in a big game, not a leader, and says we weren't winning Super Bowls with Micah Parsons anyway. Well, if that's the standard, he needs to trade everybody on that football team. A 53-man roster, and only 8 of the 53 were even alive when the Cowboys won a Super Bowl. But here's the question I have about Parsons that I haven't heard or seen anyone ask. And if you did, and I missed it, I apologize for that. But Jones has tried to defend the Parsons trade, saying it made financial sense to get more players and draft picks instead of paying one of the league's premier pass rushers. If that's true, if that's really true, then why did Jones offer him $40 million a year to stay? Jones was willing to pay $40 million a year for a player who can't stop the run, disappears in a big game, not a leader, and couldn't win a Super Bowl anyway. The ignorance of that football argument is staggering to me. And while Jones wasn't willing to pay the higher price for Parsons, the Cowboys fans have been paying the price of 4 playoff wins in 30 years. Jones will argue, and he has, that you can't pay everybody because of the NFL salary cap. But I think that cap is like our government's national debt. It's only a problem when you want it to be. Money for the poor? Our money is tight. Blow up a boat in the Caribbean? Or our military in the streets? Oh, we have more than enough money. Jones didn't have the money for Micah Parsons, and we saw what that did to the Cowboys defense. But Prescott and Tony Romo before him, the money flows like Johnny Walker Blue in the owner's suite. The Cowboys changed their quarterbacks and coaches. Players we used to cheer at the Super Bowl are getting close to Social Security and Medicare now, but the general manager never changes. There's an old saying that goes back almost 600 years. A fool and his money are soon parted, but like a lot of old sayings, it's just not true. Jones has his money, and he's a fool. An absolute football fool. I'm disgusted by 30 years of maybe next year, because I don't have that many next years left. But I can always tell my 30-year-old granddaughter and her husband, I was there and have seen the Cowboys win Super Bowls, although I know you haven't. because it was 30 years ago.
Well, Dale.
And now we're out of time. Thanks for listening to our podcast today.
I love your little synopsis there. A couple thoughts, quick thoughts.
Yeah.
Number one, that was we've seen this before, right? This is
we've
same
seen it
thing
a lot,
over and over again. Number two, we've really got to figure out a way to break you out of your shell, so you can let us know how you really feel about yourself.
I want to clarify one thing before we bring in our guest here today. That line, which is true, I did this at the Channel 8 studios in Dallas. And Gloria Campos and John McKay were the anchors. And I'm sitting off to the side of the studio interviewing Jerry live. And I asked him that question.
Yeah.
Can you name any team in any sport in the world that would hire you to be their general manager? And he go, I said, I'll wait. And as you, I think, have probably learned just doing this podcast, dead air for just a couple of seconds seems, like to the 10th power.
Exactly.
I said, I'll wait. I swear to you, I thought I sat there for like a minute and a half. It was like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And he couldn't, of course, and he didn't. We finished the interview. I thank him for the time, which I always do. I toss it back to John and Gloria, and all the blood has left their body. You could absolutely cut the proverbial tension with a butter knife. Jones gets up, and I reach out to shake hands with him, and he slaps my hand. He literally just slaps my hand and storms out of the studio, which he never does. He just never does. I called Rich Dalrymple the next day, the PR director at that time, and I said, what the hell was that? I mean, Jones, and I mean this sincerely, one of the things I absolutely respect about that man is no matter how hard you hit him, he always bounces back up for more. He's like one of those dolls we used to have as kids, round bottom.
Yeah.
You could punch him right in the mouth.
Come right
and
back
he just,
up.
hey, what else are we
We
talk?
will swabble.
And I respect that. I absolutely do.
Yeah.
And Rich Dalrymple said to me, he said, you exposed him and you sliced his Achilles tendon because you exposed the fact that he knows he can't be anybody's general manager unless he owns the team.
Right.
And I think that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
He knows because he's a smart businessman.
Yeah.
But the way he runs, we'll get into this deeper, but the way he runs his football team is absolutely obscene to me as a former, and I do say former Cowboys fan.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Cowboys legend. You could analyze what's wrong with the Cowboys, but at the end of the day, one word, Jerry, right? There's nothing more. Lila, what do you think?
You want to know what I think?
Yeah.
I think that I'm going to go to my bookshelf and pull out my pretend book that Craig Miller wrote that's called The Guide to Never Again Buying into the Cowboys. Just like I pulled it out 12 months ago.
Yeah.
And I read through it and I put it away, hoping I wouldn't take it out this year, but I'm going to go pull it out. That's what I think.
Mark, bring in our guest here. Let him join the
Yeah, no,
conversation.
I'll let you talk.
I've been saying the same thing for too damn long. I need some help.
Sure, no problem. Our guest today is a longtime Dallas Morning News writer, now working for D Magazine, and he's seen it all with the Cowboys, Mr. David Moore. David, how are you doing?
Oh, doing great. I want to thank all of y'all for having me on. I especially want to thank Dale for coming on this early in the day. I know he's usually not up and mobile at this time, so I really appreciate you conceding to my schedule. Thank you.
We do another thing, because I know you said this to me when I called you today. Can I talk about the Iron Horse? David and I and almost everybody in the Cowboys media and a few coaches and, of course, the great Tex Schramm, we spent a lot of time at the Iron Horse. So I know you're begging to tell the story, so go ahead and
there's
throw me under the
stories.
bus.
And please join in wherever you feel to be. But no, we would have after, and this was back during two-a-days when they really did two-a-days, and then everybody would go out and eat, and everybody, wherever they ate, would basically, like, there's a standing invitation, a great dive bar called the Iron Horse. And so it's like, oh, look, we'll be at the Iron Horse from like 10:30 on, just whoever come by. So, of course, Dale was there every night. And it didn't matter if there were like 4 people or 15 people.
That is true.
Dale was there every night.
That is
and so every night had the same pattern. We'll go along. We'll have the same waitress. About midway through the drinks, Dale would go to the jukebox and play "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." So that was always playing in the background. And so it wasn't loud enough for him one night. So he cranked it up and
No, we had a band there. No, we had the band.
Remember
Remember
the band? That's right.
And I kept hollering out,
Yeah,
Can you play
Right.
Don't Cry
That was
for
the
Me,
band.
Argentina? And yeah, but that was one of the very few nights they had a band.
That's right. That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. It's
yeah.
of the jukebox. So we had like a live reinforcement. And so finally we're getting louder and louder because then if you want to be heard, you have to try to go louder than Dale.
Oh, man.
It escalates and like everyone in the, again, it's a dive bar. People
Yeah.
are used to, questionable behavior.
Right.
They're all like aghast, just going, what's going on over there?
And we're making fun of the band. And
Yeah.
I'm making up lyrics to songs. And again, I'm doing it shockingly. I'm doing it at a rather high level. So here comes the punchline, David.
And so the waiter's going by because he's going. And then, of course, what better way to celebrate the lyrics he just contributed than another round of drinks?
Oh, of course.
So he's going. And so he gets her over there, and she's been the waitress for for 10 days straight or whatever. And she's just going, he's yelling, he's going, honey. And he didn't say honey, but bring me that. And it's like, she just goes, all you guys are assholes, and the fat guy thinks he's God. Like, slams down her tray and walks off.
Oh, man.
And everyone looks at me.
Yeah.
Hell, the whole bar. And I said, wait a minute. Why is everybody looking at me? And about three guys almost in unison says, because one, you guys are assholes. You are the fat guy, and you do think you're God. But that same woman, a week or so later, we survived the night. The other story, I come out of Iron Horse with a million stories, but these are the two. Do you remember this part, David? I picked up a lot of the tabs back in those days.
And again, sometimes there'll be 4 people, sometimes there'll be 12, 15 people.
And every night, it did not matter. The tab was 74.75. Remember this?
Every single night.
So we'd be saying, and sometimes I'd sit there and go, oh, gee, I think it should have been higher than that. And then one night, I think it might have just been David and maybe you and Jim Denton.
I think it's just 3 of us.
And we didn't drink that. And this is 30 years ago. So, I mean, the prices. And this had probably been, I swear to you, that not make a lot of sense to people, but I swear to you it's true. Every single night, the tab was 74.75. She puts the tab down, and not denying that alcohol might have played a role. And I just went, if that tab is 74.75, I'm not paying. And she reaches under my hand, slips it out, and walks away. She said, I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Wow. It seems like you knew a whole different Dale from gentle Odell we know.
All right, so
Yeah, David.
back to the point.
Yeah.
Back to the point. You with me? You against me? Where do you start with this 30-year mess that we've been watching?
I'm with you with a lot on it. I think there's a little context in here, but which I'm loath to bring up because we don't live in a world where you talk nuance and context, and
Not in
so I'm not sure if you want that.
But you can here. You
Okay.
you can to some extent.
No, look, the culture comes from the top. He's had it's interesting. In disagreeing with people, I've agreed with people over the years in that I think a lot of people believe and portray Jerry as this just all-consuming force at the top of the organization that micromanages, and you have to do it this way, and this is how I want it, this is what I want. My argument is he's not that, but this is every bit as destructive. You can't really develop a consistent culture when the person at the top is a culture of personality, or a cult of personality, if you will.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you can put best case practices in. You can say, these are who we want on the offensive side of the ball. This is what we want to do on defense. This is the template of what we're looking for in a player. This is kind of what we want in a coaching staff and what they believe and how they approach the job and all of this. But you don't have that. What you have is Jerry will hire and go, okay, you run this, you do this. Now, very quickly, as you mentioned, when you only have 4 playoff appearances in 30 years.
Or 4 playoff wins.
Excuse me, your power erodes, right? So I would argue he defers too much in the beginning to like, oh, you're, okay, put in place what you want here. The year and a half in, you've kind of lost a little bit of power here, so I'm gonna step in here. And the other thing is, and to me, in some ways, this is worse from an organizational standpoint of being too involved. he's involved randomly, and it's wherever he wants to involve himself. So there's no rhyme or reason to it, right? So like, well, this year, no, I'm gonna stand strong on this second round pick. This is what you need to do in the second round. Well, okay, we'll do, but he's not going to do it these other 3 years. So you draft to order, and you have everything set up. But then in the third, fourth, or fifth year, Jerry says, no. This is what we're going to do this year. And he's always going to have the final say. And I think that random aspect to it really is more the difficult workaround that they haven't figured out versus a guy who just, hey, we're doing it my way and I'm at the top. There's no other way.
I agree with you in that part. But this is what you said earlier, Mark, about why do I blame Jerry almost exclusively for the problem. Yeah, he's not that complete hands-on guy that some people think he is. But I still think the single biggest mistake that he has made since Jimmy Johnson left is that not only does he hire a head coach that nobody else wants most of the time, he told Wade Phillips, oh, by the way, here's your offensive coordinator.
And he's the heir apparent. Yeah.
I hear people argue about this, but is this not true? He told Brian Schottenheimer, here's your defensive coordinator. Matt Eberflus was hired before Brian Schottenheimer.
It actually came right after, but he was hired so quickly. It was, you do your staff, but here's what we're doing.
And then
we can get into that more in a bit on what it means going forward.
But then he passes it off as, well, no, Schottenheimer was completely involved. You're the new coach of the Dallas Cowboys. You've been coaching for 28 years and nobody gave you a head coaching opportunity. The owner of the Dallas Cowboys comes to you, and I think this is true in any business. When I'm at Channel 8, they go, here's your producer, here's your reporter. They introduced me to Tony Martinez. They introduced me to Andrea Joyce. They introduced me to Billy Matthews. Now, most of those were very, very good hires, but some of them that I've worked with over the years, I didn't like. And then I finally had the ability to say, listen, if you want me to be accountable and responsible for everybody, I hire them. I think almost every coach in the NFL, at least the ones that work successfully, they hire their own people. And I ask you this. Do you really think Jerry Jones could pick Dave Wanstead, Butch Davis, Hubbard Alexander, Joe Brodsky out of a lineup of 7 people? He didn't know who they were.
No. And
Jimmy brought them all in. They were Jimmy's guys. Jimmy wrote in his book, the single biggest mistake I made was at the University of Miami when I allowed them to tell me who my assistants are. And I would say in any business, the person at the top, if he's responsible and accountable, he has to be able to hire and fire. And Jerry, for the most part, doesn't allow his head coaches to do that.
No, and I agree. And it depends. This is interesting. And this is why I think this hiring of this defensive coordinator, I will posit, I think will be a little different. But we'll go, let's start. I agree with you there. Brian Schottenheimer, not only had never been a head coach, no one was interested in interviewing him. And look, if Mike McCarthy would have accepted what Jerry Jones offered, I don't believe Brian Schottenheimer would have been on the staff this year. I think he was going to go with a different offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway, so you're going a guy who wasn't even going to be on the staff to is now like the head coach. And I think technically, I looked at this timeline the other day. Well, I think it was like 4 days after Schottenheimer's hire was like Eberflus was. But clearly, you don't hire that quick unless it was already in the pipeline. And every year since 2014, Jerry's had a defensive coordinator who has been a former head coach. And Brian Schottenheimer, I guarantee you that Jerry and Steven said, look, offensive staff, you do what you want. You've never done, we really like Eberflus. He's been in the building. He's a head coach. You have a lot on your plate because you're calling plays in addition to being a head coach for the first time. And look, he hadn't called plays in 6 years either, right? You had to go back to like 2019 in Seattle when he was calling plays. So it was like, you have all this on your plate. We would feel better if a guy like Eberflus, is here. He's been here. We've worked with him. He's been a head coach. Talk to him and let us know what you think. Well, that Brian Schottenheimer's in no position to go, I don't like this guy. I want someone else.
Not a day.
I will tell you quickly, because I truly believe this, because not only did Eberflus not work out, but it was such a colossal failure that if Brian Schottenheimer, And what was the first thing Jerry said in this press conference the other day, other than when he's bringing up Micah Parsons for no reasons because he's obsessed with Micah Parsons? Yeah. It was like, well, what are your biggest positives? This man right next to me right here, Brian Schottenheimer, he's done this, he's done that. And Schottenheimer last year when he came in said, you know what? I've been a career assistant for so long. I was always waiting for this day. I talked to my other peers. I keep a list of positional coaches who I think are outstanding positional coaches and would also be great coordinators.
And teachers.
Yeah.
And teachers. I keep a list in case this day ever came. I had this list. And he did that on the offensive side of the ball. Brian Schottenheimer needs to go in right now, and he has capital. He will never have it another time to go in and say, Jerry, look, this didn't work. Remember, you love Clayton Adams, my offensive coordinator, right? You like these guys we have on the offensive side of the ball. These are 3 guys. I want one of these 3 to be defensive coordinator. Let's get them in here. Let's do this.
Let me put a bow on this aspect of it. We got to get to a commercial.
I was about to say, we probably need to sell something here in a little bit.
Quick bow on it.
Yeah,
You can
go
sell
ahead.
that Northwest Insurance Agency company of yours. This started when he fired Jimmy Johnson, hires Barry Switzer, again, a man that nobody was wanting to hire, and then told Barry Switzer, you're going to keep Jimmy Johnson's staff. And as I said back then, which caused all the problems between Switzer and me and led to me eventually being deciding and pushed off and wanting to leave the radio broadcast, there were about a half a dozen of those coaches, Joe Lozano in particular, Butch Davis, thought, wait a minute, I should have been the head coach. And that's the central problem. When you had a guy like, I don't know how much of a problem Jason Garrett and Wade Phillips had, but I guarantee you, it would eat me up if my assistant coach is making more money than I'm making, and that was the case with Jason Garrett. But when Jerry Jones decides that I have the ability and I have the power to tell the head coach who the assistant coaches are, it never works. It just never works. And I guarantee you, as David knows, there were coach after coach after coach who would tell you over a glass of wine, boy, hiring Switzer was stupid. They should have given me the job. And they're stabbing Switzer in the back every chance they got. Now, he did win a Super Bowl in his second year, but as, shall we say, one of the star players on that team said to me, my mom could have won a Super Bowl that year coaching that team because they would have liked my mom better. And that person was right.
Oh, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Let's take a quick break and try to sell a little bit of insurance. And when we come back, I do want to get into and get you guys' opinion about why does he always hire coaches that no one else wants? I mean, that's a pattern. I mean, he's got the money, he's got the resources, and you guys can riff on that. You've been listening and watching to Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to the podcast, but I have a question for you. What's going to happen if an accident happens at your home? Maybe a fire or a flood or even a burglary. Well, with Northwest Insurance Agency, all of those thoughts can just stay thoughts. Because when you're covered under the sombrero, you're covered for any accident imaginable. So give us a call today or visit us at nwagencies.com and let us give you the peace of mind you deserve.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen here with Dale and David Moore and Lila. Guys, when we took a break, I wanted to ask you guys' opinion. Why is it Jerry always hires these coaches that really no one else wants? I mean, he's got the resources to buy any coach he wants to, and it's always, Brian Schottenheimer, who no one wanted at all, or, Dave Campo, who never would have gotten a head coaching job anywhere else.
I made a joke one time when Jason Garrett got the job, and he was supposedly making like $3.5–4 million or something, which was even then was an incredibly low salary to be the head coach of an NFL team. And I said on the ticket, I said, this is a ridiculous salary. I said, hell, I make $4.5 million. And I was joking. And then unfortunately, my ex-wife called and sued me, but that's $100,000. But not only does he hire coaches that nobody else wants most of the time, he doesn't pay them, and I think it goes back to the very beginning when, oh, hell, I could get anybody to coach this team. He doesn't have a respect for that job that most good owners do. When you look at the list, and I'm sure I can do it anymore, but it went from Jimmy Johnson, who he could have pretty much gone anywhere he wanted. They win Super Bowls. Then they go to Barry Switzer, nobody wanted. Then it was Chan Gailey, then Dave Campo. Now they're really in trouble. He's building the new stadium in Arlington. He said this in a little drunken thing with some punk kid that recorded him. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter why. He hires Bill Parcells, who could have any job that he wanted, they immediately start their way back. They're the number one team in the league in, what was it, 2006?
Second year, yeah, they're moving back.
And you know, now they end up losing in the playoffs, but Jerry, as he said to me directly, it just wasn't fun with Bill Parcells. So he knows he couldn't fire Bill Parcells, so he did the next best thing. He brought in Terrell Owens, who Bill Parcells never referred to by name, and then Bill Parcells leaves, to be followed by Wade Phillips, that nobody was really looking to hire. Great defensive coordinator, by the way. Jason Garrett, maybe. Mike McCarthy, you're a little bit higher on him than I am, but he did have some regular season success. And then followed by Brian Schottenheimer, which the man is worth at least $20 billion.
Exactly my point.
There's no salary cap for coaches in the NFL.
Right.
I think, David, pick up the baton. I think it's obscene that he doesn't have the NFL's best coach.
Well, it goes back, and he telegraphed this in the breakup with Jimmy. 500 people can do this job. I can get 500 people. That's the baseline. He truly believes, and he has not budged off of that there are 500's hyperbole, a bit of an exaggeration, but that tells you how much value he puts on the head coach. It's about the structure in place, the players, the personnel department. So he's telling you that he doesn't value that position. And so that is why you consistently have it. You know, it is interesting, though. And to me, the other side of the Parcells argument, and they were both ready to end that relationship.
Yeah.
Look, when that started, it wasn't going to be a long-term deal, you know. And I'm
not with those two.
Not with those. No, exactly, exactly. But to me, this is the other thing, and I find this interesting. Because you hear so many people, and you're right. If you're the head coach, you should say, I have control over who I hire on my staff, right?
Should be a no-brainer, yeah.
But you still work for someone, and everyone reports to someone by and large. And even someone is, you know, when I hear people go, well, Schottenheimer just needs to stand up and do this, or, well, Garrett should stand up to him and say, no, I'm not going to do this. This is what you're going to do. I want to go, do you do that to your boss? And here's the other thing. And to me, this is why Jerry, in his mind, has some culpability. Because I really think with Parcells, he let Parcells do pretty much what he wanted to do, which is why Jerry didn't have fun when he was there.
Right up until Terrell Owens.
But Jerry went to him and he said, look, I think we really need this guy on the team. I'm sure Bill pushed back initially. And Jerry's going, Bill, I've given you 100 out of 100 things you want. You put this culture in place. You assure me how strong this culture is. You tell me you're over this culture. You tell me these guys in this locker room are good. Are you trying to tell me your culture and your system won't accommodate for a clearly more talented player than we have at the position right now? Are you telling me, the great Bill Parcells, you can't make this work? After I just told you yes 100 times on whatever you wanted, you're going to tell me no on 101? And it's a very, this is the thing about power. And Jerry wields it in a way that I think people don't, I think it's misconstrued how he wields it, but he wields it constantly.
Well, but I would argue that's also one of the biggest problems, because that seeps, I think, all the way through the locker room.
No question.
And I had that problem at my TV station several times in the early days. They knew people that technically worked for me, as you said. Who's their boss? Well, I was technically, but they knew if they didn't like what I said, they go down the hall and they talk to their friend, the John Miller, the news director, or they might even jump straight to Marty Haig or whoever, because they didn't work for me. They didn't have the fear of working for me. Yep. And I think Deion Sanders, did it, at least the stories, as well. I don't like what this has all been done. I'm going to go talk to Jerry.
Hey, this blew up in his face, but Micah Parsons did it.
Yeah.
What did Micah Parsons do? He's going like, well, I have a relationship with Jerry, and Andy circumvented. Look, Micah Parsons was the one to reach out to talk to Jerry about the contract. Now, you can argue about what the initial reason for the conversation, but both sides say Micah was the one who reached out. They start talking about contract. He does that, and he either didn't inform his agent at the time or informed him after the fact, and then that's when it became an issue, and it all went off the rails between the two.
Yeah, but
because then Jerry made it, well, you're a man of your word. Well, but the agent was going, But no, you set this in place. You knew you were circumventing everything here.
Because I don't understand. I don't really have a great appreciation for that argument about the culture of an organization, a football team. Because you think with all the money they're being paid, wouldn't they really just go out there and just play their hearts out to win a football game? No, quite honestly, they don't. And that's, I think, also true in most aspects of life. He's created an environment that has to start from the top down. And this is my main argument about this. Look at, he mentioned that the dumbest thing ever on that. I want to be the owner when I retire that has the most Super Bowl wins.
Yeah.
Well, if he lives to be 147, he might have a shot. But Robert Kraft has that distinction.
Yes.
When you think of the New England Patriots during their great run, who was the face of that organization? There's not 7 football fans in America that could pick Robert Kraft out of a crowd of 3. It was Bill Belichick, Tom Brady. Then the Kansas City Chiefs over the last decade or so. They just beat everybody. And he lives in Dallas. And there's not 2 people on Elm Street that could point to him and go, he owns the Kansas City Chiefs, Clark Hunt. Because you think of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly.
Almost, when the Raiders were winning, it was... I just drew the blank. John
Madden and Ken Stabler.
Kenny Stabler. Right. Then Al Davis got involved, and now Al Davis is the face, and they stopped winning. Almost every single team. I would argue, and some people have argued to me, well, George Steinbrenner is a bit of the exception to that they won, the Yankees won with Steinbrenner. Yeah, but they had a lot not years in there too. But still, even more so in football. I don't know. I mean, when Don Shula and not even Dan Marino, but prior to that, the Nick Bonacanis and the Larry Zonkis were winning Super Bowls. I have no idea who owned that football team. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know who owns the San Francisco 49ers right now. I thought of Joe Montana. I thought of Steve Young. I think now, of John Lynch, the GM, doing it. Kyle Shanahan doing an unbelievable,
He does. Yeah.
I have no idea who owns the San Francisco 49ers. And I would argue that most NFL fans don't know. I would also argue almost every NFL fan knows who owns the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that's the problem.
And see, I think I would even take this in a little bit different direction, because you can also make the argument where, well, look, this team's been a number 1 seed a lot of years. Out of the regular
season,
they're the ones who flopped in the playoffs. How do you explain that? I mean, Jerry was presided over team, which is all fair. Talking to some people who've been around here, and I really have come to believe this even more, is it's a little dated now. For years, I called the Cowboys the Kardashians of the NFL.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't about their competitive relevance. It was about, you talked about them because people talk about them. And just what outrageous, things you're going to do.
Yeah.
That is their social cachet in my mind at the moment, and still. But then when you dig into that a little bit deeper, what you see is, I start looking at the Dak Prescotts and the Micah Parsons when he was here, and CeeDee Lamb and some of these other guys. They have a remarkably high profile and get a lot of advertising opportunities and marketing opportunities that, if you look around the league, players usually don't get those until they've won a Super Bowl.
Right.
You didn't see Mahomes and Kelsey until they won a Super Bowl. You didn't see a lot of Brady before they won the Super Bowl.
You don't see a lot of Josh Allen right now.
Exactly. You didn't see these guys. And the thing is, because Dallas is so big, that a lot of regular season notoriety, and look, they have been relevant in the regular season by and large. That's the thing. They still have like the 6th best record over the last 15 to 18 years. You count the regular season. Now you count postseason success, they're at the bottom. But so you say, but just this franchise in having regular season success elevates Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb to national platforms and recognition that is normally reserved only for players that win Super Bowls. So what is the outside motivation or gratification to win a Super Bowl? What's that other thing gnawing at you to go, well, I want to be recognized like, Patrick Mahomes. Well, you can argue you're pretty close to what Patrick Mahomes is now as far as maximizing your endorsement opportunities. So you don't have, look, these aren't pure competitive thoughts that drive a player. I get it. But I just think because they are so big and the most valuable sports franchise in the world, because you look at all the networks now, who are on the networks? Troy Aikman, Tony Romo.
Exactly. It's always an ex-Cowboy.
Jason Garrett.
Yeah.
Daryl Johnston.
It's all
Always an ex-Cowboy.
So it's always there. So you just don't. They're insulated from the competitive realities that other NFL teams have to face in order to get the recognition that most of them do.
I think that's a great point. You're not paying Lila for this show, are you?
I forgot Lila was here. Which almost never happens. Lila from a
Are you? I said Lila was so excited, David, about getting the chance to meet you and bring you in.
Now that's gone. She's going, I need to get in there now.
I'm not sure she knows exactly what you and I were going to end up doing.
Lila was watching a little ping pong.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted.
From a fan's perspective, Lila, you obviously are not as in-depth as these two are, but from a fan's perspective.
No, but I just loved what we just witnessed.
Yeah.
Because I love to, I was telling David this before we came on air, I love to get educated on sports. I listen to the ticket nonstop. I've been a P1 almost from the very beginning. I was brought up watching and a big fan of the Cowboys. You and I have talked about how we had on our wall in our bedrooms, in our respective bedrooms when we were young. Remember, I'm a year older. We had that 1978 picture of the Dallas Cowboys player. And a couple months ago, we sat down in Mark's office and we named off back and forth. We did a contest. He beat me, but I came pretty close.
Right.
And
for a girl. Go ahead.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that rude comment later. But not that it's rude to call me a girl, but here's my perspective is that it's all about ego. If you just boil it down to just the nugget, it's all about Jerry Jones' ego. He knows he needs to fire himself as general manager. To your point, there are these things that he's a very, very smart businessman.
I think if you put him on a lie detector, he couldn't pass it.
He knows. Look at what he did with Jimmy Johnson and putting him in the Ring of Honor. Everybody was poking at him. When are you going to put him in the Ring of Honor? When are you going to put him in the Ring of Honor? And then finally, I don't know what prompted him to. He finally did it. I don't know if people stopped talking about it or what, but he finally did it. But he knows he needs to fire himself as general manager. But he is so dug in, and it is all about his ego, and it's all about he owns the most wealthy sports franchise there is out there, even more than the Yankees, $13 billion. And he's all about the shiny disco ball. He has Jerry World, which has an art gallery out there, don't forget, and which is so important. But he knows what he has to do, but his ego is at play, and he can't let go of it.
The ego and the fact that I think, unfortunately, and I don't know if he is a symptom of the problem in our world today or if he is the actual cause, it is kind of a common trend in America right now that we don't admit mistakes anymore.
Right.
We don't say, we tried that. There used to be a day, at least I think there was, I remember it this way, there used to be a day when, I thought that would work, but it doesn't. So let's try something else. I know I did it in my job. I thought I was right. I mean, I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think it was right. I get that. But there were times when I would back up and say, I don't know why this isn't working, but it's not. We need to make some changes. And there are certain leaders in our country who never admit to that. And the leader of our favorite football team,
True Power's creating an alternate reality, right?
Yeah, there's not a day. There's not a day that he was ever going to admit the mistake. And I think this is the bigger problem. David, you and I used to talk about this a lot. That when Jerry's done, however that may be, Stephen, people ask me this all the time. Well, Stephen will hire a general manager, right? And I used to think, probably. Now I think, there's no way. He can't. Because I might come out of total retirement and say, hey, Steve, I have a question. Are you saying that your old man was wrong for those previous 35 years? And Steve was not going to do that to his dad. I don't. Am I wrong about that?
No. And did Prince Charles give up the crown after he waited for like 105 years? No. He's going to take it.
He's not going to do it.
And going back to Parcells, Parcells was talk about needling and getting at things. And Stephen shared this story with me back when he was in. And Stephen and Bill Parcells always had a lot of respect for Stephen Jones. And that's the other thing. When they were needling each other, boy, Jimmy knew how to do it because he would always praise Stephen, what a great, smart football guy he was, because what's Jerry going to say about that? But anyway, Stephen would go in to meet with Bill Parcells or something, and Bill would go, okay. I'm getting marketing in stadium, Stephen, today because I can tell by the little, I can tell by what you had tucked into your jacket pocket. So you're marketing today. So you don't care about football today, right? You only care about marketing today.
Let me give you just a quick Parcells story because he keeps bringing him up. Apparently, he's got a little more of an affection for Bill Parcells than I do. Now, he was the head coach for 4 years.
Yeah.
As arrogant as this sounds, I was the top-rated sportscaster in Dallas, Texas, during that 4 years. I never met Bill Parcells.
Wow.
I never met him. Now, I talked to him from like 20 yards away at a press conference, never shook his hand, never talked to him one-on-one, never said hello to him, nor did he ever say hello to me. Mm-hmm. So a year or two of this goes by in the beginning, because every head coach that was hired, they came and they did a live interview with me first. Barry Switzer, Dave Campo, Chan Gailey, all of them. The Cowboys would call me. Okay, we're going to give you the head coach. You interview him first. We go to a training camp. Okay, the head coach will be available one night out of the deal. No. Parcells, as Rich Dalrymple said, he doesn't talk to the local media. I said, you're kidding. So I called Brad Sham, who's now going on, 44 years or something, voice of the Dallas Cowboys. Yep. And we're like toward the end of the second year, and I was kind of embarrassed by it, trying to pass myself off as a pretty well-known sportscaster who had never met the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I said to Brad, how bad should I feel about this? Brad said, not bad. He said, I haven't met him either.
Wow.
Every Friday afternoon prior to Bill Parcells, every Friday afternoon, Brad Sham would go into the office of the head coach. Tom Landry, Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer, Chan Gailey, Dave Campo. And just have a, 10, 15, 20-minute discussion about the game coming up. Mm-hmm. Maybe a couple of things to look for. Some coaches, as you well know, some coaches better than others at giving you stuff. Parcells said, I don't do that. Now, I'm pretty sure if Brad hears this, he'd met him some point. I'm sure. 4 years. I never met him. So when he decided to leave, I got so much hate mail over this. I ran the clip from the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Oh, my goodness.
I had these little munchkins running around. And I said, here's Bill Parcells at the press conference announcing his decision to leave as head coach of the Cowboys. And then the next thing you saw was, the witch is dead, the witch is dead, the wicked witch is dead.
That's a great story.
Sorry, I thought it was funny.
Oh, that's a good one.
People come out of the woodwork threatening me.
Let's take a quick break, and then we can wrap this one up. And I want to ask you two guys, is there anything going to change in the future? Are we just
any hope?
Any hope? Is there any hope? I mean, are we going to be doing this, 5 years down the road and same stuff?
I hope we're doing it 5 years down the road.
Yeah, we have to only hope. Let's take a quick break. You've been listening, watching to Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we'll be right back.
Whether you're racing to work or just enjoying a cruise on a Sunday afternoon, we can do that. It does not matter if it's a beat-up clunker of a daily driver or a supercar that you love with all your heart, we cover it. Perhaps you need business insurance to get on a job site or just want that safety net for your employees, we have that also. Don't forget about your most important asset of them all, your home. What I'm trying to say is that at Northwest Insurance Agency, we do it all.
Northwest Insurance. Get covered under the umbrella.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen and David Moore. Guys, before we took a break, I was asking, is there any hope? I mean, are we just going to happen over and over again? I mean, it's been 30 years. I mean, as a fan, I believe there's no hope. Prove me wrong.
Well, so did you? I saw this the other day where now new betting group is coming out and predicting titles for the next 50 years, and they factored in some franchise organizations like the London Monarchs. The only team that's not predicted to win over the next 50 years on the betting line is the Cowboys.
My sister was telling me. My sister's husband told me that, and yeah, that's crazy.
But I do think, I'm not saying the outcome will be different. I believe this offseason you're going to see Jerry and Steven proceed differently than what you have, because I think because he knows, and the fact he keeps bringing up Micah Parsons and when he launched into his thing at the end of the season press conference the other day about all you people get it wrong when I talk about Herschel Walker 35 years later. I'm not talking about Herschel Walker. I'm talking about what that trade resulted in. He's very much on this is what we got out of that deal. He can't not re-sign Pickens. He can't not bring Javonte Williams back. He can't do those things and trade and make a big splash this offseason. He's going to spend more in free agency than he has. I think you're more likely to see Pickens get done sooner rather than later, which you would not have seen in past years. Javonte Williams is another guy. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but look, all the focus is on defense this offseason where it needs to be. But if you don't sign Javonte Williams and you don't have a satisfied George Pickens back in the fold, you're taking a step back on offense to improve incrementally on defense, and you're not going to be any better than what you were. I think he realizes he was way too cavalier with the nucleus of a team that went 12-5 in 3 consecutive seasons. He and his decisions tore that down to ground zero or pretty close to it over these last 2 years. I think he knows he needs to put his money where his mouth is now, and you will see him respond this year because of that.
Are you not concerned that George Pickens might become the Pittsburgh Steelers' George Pickens again?
Sure.
Once he gets his big money?
Yes. I mean, they put themselves out in that position. Yeah.
There's no question of his talent. Yeah. But when they really did need him to step up in a couple of games there in this past season, he disappeared. That was one of my favorite things. Yeah, you got to, and maybe he will. But what my belief is, and I don't have any hope, by the way. I'm kind of with you on this. I don't have much hope because
you never have.
By the time he fixes the defense, Dak Prescott's what 32
tail in,
and now the game with very few exceptions. I mean, I like Dak Prescott, but I don't think he's Tom Brady. I don't know how good he'll be when he's 35, 36 with the beating that he does take on occasion. But when you had, and I think they somewhat knew they had, a Super Bowl offense this past year.
Yeah.
That was an absolute Super Bowl offense.
No question.
And the 3 positions you need is a quarterback, a wide receiver, and a pass rusher. And this general manager who says, I will do anything to win another Super Bowl, trades one of the premier pass rushers, and then Steven steps up and says, we can scheme around that. We can scheme.
You can scheme
a pass rush. And then we see, while we have almost an historically good offense, we have a historically bad defense. I don't see that. By the time I think by the time they fix the defense, I think the offensive problems will pop.
The other thing I just think will be different this year because, look, and this is why it's difficult to interpret Jerry, because sometimes you get Jerry, the general manager, talking. Sometimes you get him as the head marketing and sales.
Yeah, the promoter. Yeah.
And the promoter and the salesman in Jerry understands that I can't keep talking about money on my franchise that I gained by letting Parsons go. How often have you heard him say this is going to get us 5 to 6 guys? Now I'm going to give up a 3rd-round pick for Pickens, lose him a year later because I'm not going to pay him, and after he had the best year of his career, I'm going to get eviscerated. So I think Pickens, look, if they hadn't traded Parsons, there is no doubt in my mind that George Pickens would have been on the franchise tag to keep him from going to free agency this offseason, and they wouldn't have really looked to negotiate legitimately with him going forward. They would have said, let's see it one more year, and then we'll go from there. The moment Parsons was traded and Pickens responded the way he did in terms of performance, I think it changed the equation, and I think Jerry and Steven very much feel now we've got to get this guy in the fold. If it doesn't work out, let's structure it, or maybe we can still trade him and get something down the road.
Here's the other thing I see as a long-term problem. I think this is on the one hand, is depending on your point of view, I think it's one of the best fan bases in the NFL, and it's also one of the worst fan bases in the NFL because they show up no matter what. They keep buying into what he's selling on a regular basis. And I also throw the media under that same bus. I loved reading the articles, and if I read it once, I read it 10 times, and listening to the talk radio shows, and if I heard it once, I heard it 10 times. After they beat Philadelphia, and everybody forgot they were down 21-0, but they did beat them, and then they beat Kansas City. Pretty impressive. I heard and read 20 times, this team is positioned to win out. They're going to win their last 5 games, and they're going to be in the playoffs, and this is the year. The fans bought it. The lovely Mrs. Hanson bought it. So many members of the media bought it, and they only missed it by 4. They only missed it by 4. If they hadn't lost those 4 games, they would have won all 5. And just enjoy the fact they beat Washington by 7.
With Johnson, who's a quarterback who is already
third-string quarterback, and it's a 7-point game.
Yeah,
you know what is frustrating to me too? I'm gonna go a little bit of a different direction to your point of talking about marketing. You know, am I coming in and talking to Stephen Jones, who's focused on marketing? What is so fascinating I think to a fan, at least to me as a fan, is what Jerry Jones has done with this team financially and in terms of sponsorships and advertising. I have an advertising background. I've sold advertising for years and years. Sponsorships and advertising and making money fascinate me. I'm a salesperson.
Fascinate you, but you think any fan cares about that?
No, but I'm just talking about me. I mean, but what I'm saying is it's very fascinating that this man bought a team for $140 million and now it's worth $13 billion. So my point, and I think you're right. I don't think there's a whole cadre of fans out there that are like, hey, like what I just said. But it's so frustrating that he can't take that brain power and transfer it over to having a winning team after 30 years.
Well, I think
it's super frustrating.
Well, it's because you don't have the purity of, it's not a football
it's a business
operation that only makes football decision.
Right.
Because Jerry knows how the whole thing works, and he goes, okay, I hear your football point, but what about this?
Right. And
what about and you don't divorce it, so you never have someone come in and go, this is what we need to do from a football standpoint, because it's always put in the larger context of, well, how does it fit in the overall empire that we have here?
Yeah, look what he did with Pepsi and wasn't it Pizza Hut? Like I always remember what he did with Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like you said, there's always that appendage added. There's always that piece added. It's not ever divorced.
Real quick, Jerry's coming to the end of the rainbow at some point. I mean, the man is 83 years old. And you said this season's going to be a little bit different. Is he ever going to go back to the wildcatter that he used to be, where he would just all in, you know? You say this year, maybe?
I think you'll see some elements of that this year. I think the Netflix series sparked what he used to be.
Right.
I think he's looking at, and he talks about this, he's looking at his own mortality more now. And he's saying, you know what? I had success when I did it the way I wanted to do it, having fun doing it. By God, I'm going to do that again. But he's different now than he was 35 years ago. You look at things differently. Every industry absorbs the person that comes in and spits out a different person than who they were when they came in. And you don't even recognize it a lot of times. So I think he will do things, but he won't be the rebel who breaks the system the way he was before by any means. He's now operating within the system that he helped build, and I don't think he knows how to break out of it anymore.
Wow.
The other last thing, I'll put my little bow on this, and I just can't let it go. Maybe I should, but I can't. You talked about, and he talked about it rather at that press conference, that, well, that Micah Parsons trade is like, you know, my Herschel Walker trade.
Yeah.
He said in that Cowboys special on Netflix that Tex Schramm told him that you really should trade Herschel Walker and get a great deal in return. I believe this is how we started the podcast. I'm calling bullshit on that. Yeah. Tex Schramm couldn't stand Jerry Jones because of the way Jerry bought the football team. There is not a day in hell that Tex Schramm told Jerry Jones, you should consider trading Herschel Walker. And as Tom Landry said, Tex Schramm said, he was their best player at that time. They wouldn't have made that trade. And it's Jerry rewriting history and telling lies to prop himself up. which is another, because I always like to make it political.
Yeah, I was about to say, I knew it was coming.
That we have in America from people in charge.
Yeah.
And that brings me to next month.
Please tell me, what do you have for us next month? But try to break out of your shell again, please.
Well, talking about a guy who likes to dominate a conversation, this will be a fun one too, I think. Although fun might be the wrong word. Mark Cuban is going to join us on this podcast, and we're talking about healthcare. Mark Cuban is doing some amazing things. My daughter has ulcerative colitis, like her old man does. The prescription they put her on was over $500 a month after insurance. She got her prescription through Mark Cuban's pharmacy, $110 a month. So Mark Cuban, and I told him, although I may try to work on this a little bit, no sports questions from Mark. He wants to talk about healthcare. And as he said to me when I contacted him, what got you interested in healthcare? Well, I think it's the issue of our time.
Right.
I think it's the absolute issue of our time. I don't understand why we're continuing to argue about healthcare. So next month on this podcast, Mark Cuban talking about healthcare.
That is a jaw dropper there, Lila. Did you hear what Dale said, that Mark Cuban's going to be here? I mean,
I'm very excited.
When it started out, we were just a weird Jewish girl and a chubby Mexican guy. And look where yeah, we are that, but Mark Cuban's going to be here with us next month. Yeah.
We're bringing Dale. We decided last summer we need Dale to add to our weirdness.
Yeah.
And now he's got Mark Cuban.
Yeah, David, it's the Jew, the Mexican, and the fat guy
thinks he's got.
Yeah, there you go. Well, guys, thank you so much, David Moore. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure, man. It's been a pleasure to discuss the Dallas Cowboys with Dale Hansen and David Moore. We will see you next month on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. Thanks again.